Good morning, YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. This is IMAX Sports with another football video, and today I am going over my predictions for the NFL MVP. This is a top 10 list, and the bottom few, I don't particularly expect to get the MVP, but I think there's a possibility of it. So I would just like to mention about yesterday. Yesterday I posted a new video. It was about the NFL Power Rankings for Week 3, my predictions on how the teams are right now. And I've never had a video get over 20 likes in the first day before. I've never had a single day where my channel gets over 46 views in one day. Yesterday, my video on the first day it was out got 200 views, and I got 209 total views on my channel. And that's just insane, and I never expected that to happen. And I just like to thank everyone that came down to the channel yesterday, and if there's anyone that was new yesterday and came back today, thank you for coming back to watch more of my videos. I really enjoy it, and I appreciate it. Just a disclaimer before I get started. These projections, some of these may be a little extreme, so don't rage quit the video if you think that some of my projections are a little outlandish. I don't believe every single player on here will get these statistics, but I think that they all have the potential to get the statistics that I've posted for their projection. So I'm not saying that all these players are going to get all of these touchdowns and all these yards, because that would be insane and wouldn't happen. But I'm saying that each of these players has the potential to do as good as I'm projecting them to do. So just before we get the video started, I'd just like to say that, and without further ado. So coming in at number 10, I have Calvin Ridley. I know a lot of people might say, why do you have a wide receiver on here? And it's because I'm making a list with 10 people on it, right? And I don't really want to have 10 quarterbacks because that wouldn't be very interesting. So I just wanted to accentuate some of the players that are doing phenomenal at their own position. I know a wide receiver has never won the MVP before, but I think that Calvin Ridley deserves some recognition for what he's done so far this year. He has 21 receptions for 349 yards and 4 touchdowns. He leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns, and he's second in yards only to DeAndre Hopkins by 7. For my projections, I project he'll get 120 catches for 1,800 yards and 15 touchdowns. I think that that is quite possible for him. The only things holding him back, he's a wide receiver, so the chances of him getting the MVP are pretty much 0. His team record right now is 0-3. And if Julio Jones, depending on how Julio Jones returns and how well he does when he returns, that could very much hurt Calvin Ridley's statistics. But I think that either way, Calvin Ridley's still going to have an amazing season because Matt Ryan has found him and he likes him as a target so far. So I think that no matter what, Calvin Ridley will have at least 1,500 yards and a good handful of touchdowns, but I'm not sure exactly how the numbers are going to fall yet, especially with Julio Jones being on the Falcons. Next we have Lamar Jackson. He didn't have the most impressive night last night, but he had 2 very strong games to start off the season. He's 53 of 77 for 574 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 picks. He has carried the ball 32 times for 182 yards and no touchdowns. He was the 2019 NFL MVP, so I think that shows that he has the potential to get the award. For my projections, I have him getting 3,500 yards and a quarterback rating of 101, 30 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Now, I didn't just pull these numbers out of the air. I was just looking at his statistics from last year and what he did the year before, and a couple of different things. I looked at how he's been trending, his yards per attempt, different things like that, and that's how I did most of these projections. I looked at yards per attempt, I looked at different things, and then I made it more realistic than these overblown numbers that they would have if I just went straight off of their statistics from 3 games. I think he's going to have around 160 carries for 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns, bringing him to about 4,500 total yards and about 35 touchdowns. What's holding him back? He had a slow start to the season compared to some of the other quarterbacks. I give him about 2% chance of being the MVP. Now, by a slow start, I mean his statistics are not as phenomenal as some of the other quarterbacks on this list. He still has had phenomenal statistics so far this season, and he's 2-1. He's having an amazing season. but his statistics are not as phenomenal as some of the other players on this list, so that's why I'm considering it a slow start. Next on the list, we have Aaron Jones, who so far this season has had 50 carries for 303 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns, as well as 10 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. He leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns. He's second in yards to Derrick Henry, and he's in his projections so far this season. In my opinion, he's going to have 275 carries for about 1,550 yards, and about 50 catches for 450 yards, for 13 rushing touchdowns and 4 receiving touchdowns. What might be holding him back? He might not lead rushing. I don't think that he will lead rushing. I have another player just above him I think is going to lead rushing, and I give him about a 3% chance of being the MVP. So far, 50 carries is a pretty large sample size. He's averaging about 6 yards per carry. So I wanted to stay true to that 6 yards per carry when I put his final numbers down. I think I put him at around 5.3 or something, but I'm not 100% positive. And I gave him a decent amount of touchdowns, because if he already has 5 in 3 games, I should see no problem with him getting well over 10. So 17, I think, is a pretty solid number. I think that Aaron Jones might have the most accurate projection of anyone on this list, quite frankly. I think that these projections are quite doable for him and actually pretty likely. So Aaron Jones at number 8 on my MVP list. Coming in at number 7, I have my projected leading rusher, Derrick Henry. So Derrick Henry so far this season has 82 carries for 319 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has 5 catches for 26 yards, and he leads the NFL in rushing yards. I think that he's going to continue to do this, and I think that he's going to finish off the season as the leading rusher. He has 400 carries for my projections, I think he'll have 400 carries for around 1,800 yards, 20 catches for 150 yards, and 14 rushing touchdowns, as well as 2 receiving touchdowns. I think that in order for a running back to get the NFL MVP, they need 2,000 rushing yards. I think that Derrick Henry is the only running back on this list that has the potential to get 2,000 rushing yards thus far in the season. I think Aaron Jones has the potential, but I don't think that he's on the right team for it. I think Aaron Rodgers likes passing the ball a lot, and that's their offense. But I think that the Titans' offense last season was built around Derrick Henry. And so I think that if Derrick Henry improves his yards per attempt, which have not been as good as they were last year so far this season, then I think that he can have an amazing season and get that 2,000 mark. But right now, with the yards per attempt that he's been getting and different factors, I have him at 1,800 yards on 400 carries. What's holding him back is so far his yards per attempt, and he's not a receiving running back. You can get 2,000 yards, you can get all the touchdowns in the world, but you need to catch some balls in order to get MVP, I believe, in this new era of football. He also is not, he only has 2 touchdowns so far in the first 3 games. Not a big deal, but there's other players that have way more touchdowns than him so far this season. So I give him about a 5% chance. Next is Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is 96th of 143 for 1,188 yards and 5 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. Quarterback rating of 98.5. So for Dak Prescott, he also has 14 carries for 75 yards and 3 touchdowns. So right now he leads the NFL in passing yards, and I'm projecting him to lead the NFL in passing yards. I actually am projecting him to lead the NFL in passing yards so hard that I have him breaking the record. And I don't think this is particularly likely because you can't predict someone to break a record. That's not something that you predict. But I think that it would be really cool if he broke the record, and I think that it's quite possible for him to break the record because he's averaging 400 yards a game through 3 games. That's a decent chunk of games for a decent chunk of yards. So I think that he could very well get 4,400 yards in the next 13 games. I think that's quite possible, and it would be really cool if he did. I think he'll have a quarterback rating of 103 with 34 touchdowns and 10 picks. And I think that he'll carry the ball 50 times for 250 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think that his touchdowns are going to be a little bit lower than some of the other quarterbacks on this list. He'll have a couple of rushing touchdowns, but the yards is what's really going to help him. His team record right now is 1-2. That could be holding him back a little bit. I know that that's not really a whole big deal in the whole scheme of things, especially considering it's only 3 games into the season. So right now I give him about a 7% chance of making it to the MVP. At number 5, we have Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, so far this season, is 71 of 106 for 887 yards and 9 touchdowns. He has a quarterback rating of 121.1, and he is top 5 in the NFL for both passing and passing yards and passing touchdowns. I project that he'll have 4,700 yards for a quarterback rating of 111 for 36 touchdowns and 4 picks. Nothing he hasn't done before in his past. He's gotten all those numbers in his past before, and I think that he could very well do it again. What's holding him back this season is the fact that Aaron Jones is on his team. I think it's very hard to get MVP if you have 2 MVP contenders on the same team, because then you don't know if they're the most valuable player. If you have 2 players on the same team that are MVP contenders, then how do you know which one of them has had the bigger impact on the team? I think that his passing touchdowns also will have a bit of an effect. I think that Dak Prescott will have less passing touchdowns than Aaron Rodgers, but so far this season, he's rushing for a lot of touchdowns. I think that Aaron Rodgers' touchdowns are a little bit lower than the other players in this list right now, or at least they're the lowest or the same amount as the other players. And I think that some of the other players with younger teams and younger players and better wide receivers could do better. So right now I give Aaron a solid chance at 10% for my 5th position in the projections. Next on this list, I have Alvin Kamara, who currently has 31 carries for 153 yards and 3 touchdowns, as well as 27 receptions for 285 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's currently leading the league in both scrimmage yards and touchdowns, with 6. I think that this season, he could very well have 200 carries for 1,000 yards, as well as 120 receptions for 1,200 yards. I think that he could be a double 1,000 player and go 10 for 10 for 20 total touchdowns. I think that this is just a really cool stat line. That's kind of why I made it, and I think that it's quite possible, because how he's been doing so far this season, he's on track to get 32 touchdowns. That's not going to happen, but it's possible for him to have an amazing season this year, especially if Michael Thomas is out for a couple of games, and if Drew Brees is getting a little bit older and he needs to do some of those dump-off passes. I think Alvin Kamara also missed some games last year and is going to want to come back this year, come back strong, and really help out his team. I think that the things that are going to hurt him are his rushing yards, because like I said earlier, they usually don't give the MVP unless the running back has over 2,000 yards. So that could hurt him a little bit. His team record could hurt him. Right now they're 1-2. I think that the Saints are going to finish off the season with a pretty decent record, but they are 1-2 right now. And I give him about a 13% chance of getting the MVP. I think that he has phenomenal stats right now, and I think that he's going to persist in these MVP endeavors. At number 3, we have Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomey. He's currently 82 of 121 for 898 yards and 9 touchdowns. He has 0 interceptions and a quarterback rating of 114.3. He has 10 carries for 80 yards and another touchdown. He is currently top 5 in yards and touchdowns, just like Aaron Rodgers, but he is not top in either. Predictions. I think that he'll have 4,600 yards, quarterback rating of 106, 42 touchdowns, and 7 picks. I think that he can have 45 carries for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think that he has a very strong chance of getting the NFL MVP. But I think that some of the other players right now have shown a little bit more gusto in the first couple of games. Patrick Mahomes has shown that he can ball out in 2 of his 3 games. The Chargers game was a little iffy, but he still won and played phenomenally. What's holding him back is the second half of the season, because as we've seen in Patrick Mahomes before, he starts off on fire, and then he slowly doesn't do as well. I know that happens with a lot of different players, but his first season he started off, I believe, 10-0, and he ended up 12-4, or maybe he was 9-0. But he had some crazy amount of wins, and then he ended up losing 4 of his last 7 or 8 games. So I think that Patrick Mahomes is an amazing quarterback, and I think that he is currently the best quarterback in the league. But I think that this season, the NFL MVP will go to someone else. Not Josh Allen. Josh Allen, I have at number 2. I think that Patrick Mahomes almost is more likely to get it than Josh Allen, but Josh Allen has had phenomenal stats so far this season, and I wanted to give him credit where credit is due. He's 81 of 114 for 1,038 yards and 10 touchdowns. He has 1 interception for a quarterback rating of 124.8. That's the highest we've seen so far on this list. I think that he also has 32 carries for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I'm projecting that he'll have 5,100 yards, 109 as a quarterback rating for 40 touchdowns, 10 picks, and 100 carries for 500 yards and 9 touchdowns. The reason why I have him above Patrick Mahomes, so far he has more yards and more touchdowns this season. He has a higher quarterback rating. He has more rushing yards and touchdowns. And I think that he's going to continue to have pretty good numbers. I think that he'll end up with close to 40 touchdowns. I don't know if he'll get 40, but I know that he's definitely capable of it, especially with how the season has started. I'm giving him 10 picks because that's around his average for his career so far. And I have him at 100 carries for 500 yards, about general to what he's been doing this season, and 9 touchdowns. I don't know if this is sustainable. He's a brand new quarterback. He's only a couple years into the league. We haven't seen this from him yet, so I don't know if he'll be able to continue it. So I give him about an 18% chance at the MVP this season. And number 1 on the list, I have Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson so far this season is 79 of 103 for 925 yards and 14 touchdowns. He has 1 interception for a quarterback rating of 139.0. He has 14 rushes for 90 yards and 0 touchdowns. Most touchdowns through 3 games in NFL history. And probably the highest quarterback rating through 3 games as well. I'm projecting he'll have 4,500 yards, 119 quarterback rating, 53 touchdowns, and 8 picks. I think that he'll also have 65 carries for 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. So these numbers were the ones I was the least sure about when I was making them. First of all, he has as many yards as these other quarterbacks, but I put him just a tad bit under because throughout his career he hasn't had the most yards in the league. He's only had over 4,000 2 or 3 times. So I gave him his most yards of his career, and a quarterback rating of 119, which I think is doable, especially considering he has 139 through 3 games. I gave him 53 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Actually, with these stats and his yards per attempt and different things, his quarterback rating was much higher than 119. But I thought 119 was more accurate. I figured his yards per attempt would go down and his passing completion percentage would go down a little bit as well. I gave him 53 touchdowns. I think that he could potentially get the record. I didn't want to put him as getting the record because we saw Patrick Mahomes have 13 touchdowns in 3 games and end up with 50. So if Wilson has 14 touchdowns in 3 games, I'm not going to predict that he gets the record. But he could very well get it. And I don't see that as a far-fetched possibility. I'm giving him 8 picks, and his rushing, that's just about what he does per year for rushing yards. It might be a little bit lower if he has more passing yards, but so far, through 3 games, he already has 90 yards. So that's on track for 500, so I gave him 400. What's holding him back? Nothing. He has the best wide receivers in the league. At least DK Metcalf is insane, and Tyler Lockett is insane. I'm not sure if they're the best in the league, but he has one of the best receiving cores in the league. I'm giving him a 25% chance of getting the NFL MVP, and Russell Wilson is my guy. I made a video in July predicting that the Seahawks would win the Super Bowl, and so far, my prediction and the things that I've been saying about the Seahawks on this channel throughout all these weeks are coming to true. They're coming true. The Seahawks are pulling out, and they're pulling out hard. And I think that they're going to have an amazing season, and I'm excited to watch Russell Wilson play this game. So thank you guys all for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, I haven't been making a whole lot of videos recently, and then when I made the one yesterday, it got so much recognition that I was like, okay, I gotta continue making content. I want to see if my channel can grow even more. I got 4 subscribers in one day, which has never happened before, and I got 209 views yesterday. So I know I mentioned this all earlier, but It's so crazy. I've never expected this before, and it's just crazy. I'm so happy. Thank you guys so much. Please do like and subscribe to it. Just subscribe to the channel. It really does help. I'm going to continue to try and make content every single day, even though I have a lot of schoolwork to do. So if you guys could support my channel, tell people about the channel, spread the word, that would be really appreciated. We're trying to get to 50 subscribers now. Hashtag road to 50 subscribers. I've been doing every 5, but now that we hit 30, we're going straight to 50. We're just going for it. So let's see if we can get 50 subscribers by the end of the month. So 50 subscribers by the end of October. So thank you guys so much for watching the videos. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you guys all in the next video. Peace out.